and try to share some insight to help you make better decisions and get some ideas about what's going on in Panama right now. So last week, I had a really interesting conversation with a gentleman who has grown his firm from a small company about 15 years ago. They came to Panama and they were hired by the banks to keep an eye on developers and make sure that, for example, if the bank provided a loan for $10 million to build a project, that money was being allocated on things like cement and payroll and crane rentals and all that good stuff. So these guys started boots on the ground in the construction world and have since grown to be this massive investment fund that provides equity for new projects, that links banks to financing existing projects, and it also does bailouts, i.e., developers who, for example, didn't have the cash flow to ride out the pandemic. Because keep in mind, when you are building, you buy the land, you usually put a loan against the land to get some money out and start on your soft costs like architecture plans, all that jazz. Why is this interesting? Well, this guy's an expert. This guy is a monstro, as they say in Panama, somebody who really knows what they're talking about. And here are a couple of things I learned. First of all, in Panama City, Panama, today, to build your average high-rise, let's call it 30-meter high-rise in El Cangrejo, for example, a la Luxor 400. That's just a random project that's going on here. You're going to need to spend, as a developer, around $1,800 a square meter, or about, let's call it $170 a square foot, just to start building it and complete it, obviously. What does that mean for somebody who's looking to buy property in Panama? That is your new replacement cost benchmark. And anything you can get for less than that is kind of a deal. I mean, of course, you're going to find older property that's cheaper than that. You're going to find newer property that's a lot more expensive than that. But it's an interesting number to base decisions on, because your neighbor, if it's an empty lot and they start building on it, is going to have to price their properties a lot higher than $1,800 a square meter, because developers still need to make money. If their costs are $1,800, figure opening price point for any new construction project right now is probably going to need to be about $2,100, because developers obviously need margin. So that's kind of interesting. I wanted to share that with you guys because I think it's relevant to help people make a decision on, well, how do I even know if it's a good deal or not? Speaking of good deals, speaking of this same conversation I had, there are about 40 projects right now in and around Panama that are in trouble. Now, some of those are barely up out of the ground. Some of them are halfway, and a couple of them are already completely done. Well, the only people that are in trouble when a project is completely done is the developer. Bank is already pretty much out of it, and now the developer is just waiting to make their profit. So why is that interesting? Again, for people looking at Panama real estate right now, well, there are still a couple deals to be had. We just are getting ready to list, and try not to make this into a commercial, but we are getting ready to list some of these units in a project. As soon as we have the green light, I'll let you guys know what it is. But these are the kind of opportunities that are interesting because you're buying below replacement cost, because somebody else with a lot more money came in, scooped them up, and now they're going to make a little profit on the difference, right? They're buying at prices from 5 years ago, developer cost at 5 years ago, which, developers have been in a tough situation these last couple of years. And between us, that's good, because we needed the new supply to come down a little bit. When I first came to Panama, my goodness, 2007, woo, cranes everywhere. It felt like Dubai. For the good and for the bad. Some of that inventory got snatched up. Most of that inventory is gone. However, we're starting to see some of it come back. The reason I bring that up is you drive around Panama today, and yes, there's still construction projects going on, but they're not a whole lot of new projects, which means that you buy today, you're not going to be facing in 4 years a bunch of competition from brand new projects. Again, that's supporting the idea that timing is interesting right now, and the timeline for Panama is looking good. So kind of taking a macro level, looking at other factors that drive real estate, obviously supply and demand are the big ones. But what about what's going on in the local and international economy? So local economy, employment, as we've been talking about, is coming back, especially in the sectors that are good for real estate, i.e. hospitality and tourism. If you're not in Panama, you probably wouldn't see it, but this town is flooded with tourists, not just in Panama City, all over the country. That means that folks come down, they have a look, maybe they don't want to buy, maybe they do want to buy. Those transactions usually happen in the next 3 to 6 months. So when you get a ton of people coming down, that means that you're probably going to have some activity in about 6 months, which we like. And unfortunately, there were people that came down 6 months ago that are just now finishing up their deals. So tourism is back. It's also good for the economy, tourism, because hotel workers are back to work, and hotel workers need places to live. Restaurant workers need places to live. Restaurant owners can start scaling up and expanding. We know of a couple restaurant owners who have opened up new spots. For example, our friends over at the Wallace just opened up an amazing spot in Costa del Este called Frank's Place. Super classy. Check it out. Point being is when you get those two sectors recovering, then the real estate market is impacted. Same thing with gross domestic product, although, fireworks, hey, 15% GDP growth, but GDP growth from what, right? Like we were negative last year. But again, foreign direct investment in the form of, business buyouts and infrastructure development, not infrastructure, that's more sort of GDP, but not foreign direct investment. So other examples of money coming into Panama, not just with tourists, with expansions. Local businesses. We've seen several big corporations ramp up hiring, take up new office space. Things are almost better than they were 3 years ago. Now, why? Well, a couple of the reasons we just talked about, but also, as everybody knows, there's a lot of US dollars and actually a lot of currency floating around these days. Governments and I don't know the technical term for the people who make the money, treasuries around the world, of course, have been printing cash like it's nobody's business to fund COVID prevention and purchases of whatever. All of that has caused inflation, right? We have not avoided it in Panama. We're still seeing inflation, not to the extent of the US. I don't know why, because we are kind of a net importer, but some of the stuff that are locally, well, price caps help too. The government, even though nobody liked the idea back, 6 years ago when Varela said, hey, we're going to have price caps on 30 different things, price control. I mean, free market, folks, we hate that, right? Let the market speak for itself. However, good old Varela, people didn't really like him. And in hindsight, he did was not that great. Sorry if you're watching Varela, but you're not watching. He wasn't that great. However, price ceilings, price controls in a tiny market like Panama that's controlled by 10 families and 30 government officials are kind of necessary because, again, those free market forces were not allowed to operate without restrictions. You've got corruption up and down, super awful for Panama, but currently still a fact of life. Although, score one for Panama, they just threw one of these politicians in jail about a week ago. He got I think, 2-year sentence. I mean, he'll still be ordering, steak from his homeboys on the outside, and it'll get to him. Prison for politically corrupt officials is not that interesting or punitive, but hey, what can you do? Okay, so getting off on a tangent, but trying to bring y'all up to speed about what's going on out here. What else can I tell you about the Panama real estate market? Hey, I love questions, by the way, so I'm not just monologuing here. ¿Qué les iba a decir? Business-wise for Panama equity, woo, it's busy still. Ton of action out on the beach. Panama is back on the spotlight. CNN just featured it as top destination for retirement, although usually that's influenced by a little, pay for play from guys like International Living. But hey, we all benefit from that, right? Rising tide lifts all ships. Beach prices, come up a tiny bit, but there was a lot more inventory to be absorbed out there. Panama is going to be easing mask restrictions, which we like. Panama has already eased some travel restrictions. Panama is not a country where you're going to have to show a vax card everywhere you go. I mean, hey, I'm vaccinated. I don't preach it. It gets very political very quickly. We did have some major issues that caused people to get the heck out of Dodge in Panama during the pandemic. If you don't know about it, ask your realtor, because I'm not going to tell you about it right now here. What else can I tell you? Panama real estate market update wise. Rents are continuing to come up. Costa del Este has a pretty much absence of 3-bedroom furnished apartments for under $2,000. I didn't think I would be saying that a year and a half ago. Panama is a tiny market. Don't forget it, guys. You get a Procter & Gamble, as I've said before on these lives, that move into town like they did in 2007, and whoop, it's like a switch gets flipped. 200 apartments get rented a month. Prices actually come up because of one company. And believe me, companies are looking at Panama. Companies are coming to Panama. Small and large businesses, we've seen them opening up again in a major way because Latin America is getting even more interesting with the war in Ukraine. You know, God bless the Ukrainians. God bless the Russians that do not support Putin. There's a lot of suffering going on out that way, and hate to say it, but Panama is kind of benefiting from that in a small and very short term way. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen with energy prices. Nobody knows what's going to happen with food commodity disruptions. But for the time being, Latin America is still peace and love for the most part. You've got a new government in Chile, a government in Peru that's sort of toned down a little bit. I don't know what's going on in Colombia, but the point is that the region itself is growing, and rising tide lifts all ships again. Panama benefits from that. A lot of major corporations based in Panama do a lot of their business in Latin America. So, hey, business is good in Chile. Business is good in Colombia. What do? You add more people to your call center. You hire 20 more secretaries. You bring on another big law firm. All that money stays in Panama. So point being there is it's a good time to be looking at Latin America, not just because of what's going on in the Ukraine, but just in general, regional stability, political stability. There's not a lot of wars going on in Latin America right now. You know, you still got the FARC reemerging in Colombia. You've still got, I think, a lot of social unrest in Brazil with the current, I don't want to call it regime, but he's pretty, I don't know what the word is. Again, getting off on a tangent, but trying to add some regional perspective as well. Guys, we're busy. It's a good time to be looking at Panama real estate. It is the busy season for a reason. The weather is awesome, 85 degrees and sunny. Going to stay this way for probably about another 2 months before our rainy season kicks in. No comments. Hopefully comments are turned on. I don't see them in my stream. I'll check them afterwards. Thank you for watching. And I would appreciate if you make it to the end, if there's anything that you guys are ever interested in that I talk about, let me know, because I'm happy to do it. Happy Friday, y'all. Buy low, sell high. Bye-bye.